It's the Michael Patrick Leahy Show, broadcasting live from downtown Nashville. Now, here's Michael Patrick Leahy.
Good morning to the John Fredericks Radio Network. We are broadcasting live on this final day of 2024 from Nashville, Tennessee. Our studios in downtown Nashville, just a stone's throw from the Tennessee State Capitol, December 31st, 2024. We'll get right to it. It's time for the Morning Rundown, brought to you by the Glock Store, located just a few miles from the airport here in Nashville. It's the place to go for all of your Glocks, Glock parts, and accessories. And of course, if you live here, it's a great place to go to shoot and to train. Glockstore.com, Glockstore.com. Here we go. The Morning Rundown for Tuesday, January 31st, 2024. Number one, Donald Trump has endorsed Mike Johnson for Speaker of the House again in the next session of Congress. Congress will convene this Friday, January 3rd, to determine if they're going to elect him again or not. Republicans have a 219 to 215 advantage. Yeah, Matt Gaetz' seat is empty. That's why it's 219 to 215. Tom Massey from Kentucky says he's going to vote against the speaker. That would make it 218 to 216, right? Or 218 to 215, depending what he does with his vote. It's going to come down to the wire. I think ultimately, Johnson will get elected speaker again. He may be on a very short leash. Andy Ogles, congressman from Tennessee's 5th Congressional District, part of the House Freedom Caucus, joins us at the bottom of the hour to discuss how he's going to vote. We'll be interested to see that. Number two, Donald Trump, president-elect, met with Muriel Bowser of the District of Columbia. And, of course, she's a left-wing mess, created a disaster in the District of Columbia. I think she went down to Mar-a-Lago, and she issued a statement saying, we're going to work together to make D.C. great. Well, we'll see how that all plays out. Trying to play nice, but she's not been very nice. Look, when it comes to District of Columbia, I think we need to take the home rule away because it's become highly politicized in a very negative way for more than half the country. But we'll see how that plays out. Number three, you remember Les Miserables, Inspector Javert, who was merciless in pursuing innocent people? Well, the modern version of Inspector Javert, U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia, Matt Graves, has resigned. He's resigned just ahead of the posse. I think that guy is going to be in pretty big trouble. Number four, the biggest story of 2024, media cover-up of Biden incompetence. We're going to talk with Tom Zalistowski about that, the Tea Party leader from Ohio. And we've got some clips we're going to play about the mea culpa from the regime media. Number five, in our second hour, we're going to hear from the great Steve Cortez. He's going to cast some light on this whole H-1B visa controversy. So there you go. There is the Morning Rundown for Tuesday, December 31st, 2024, brought to you by the Glock Store. I recently heard from my good friend Lenny McGill. He's the founder and CEO of the Glock Store. He said their Black Friday deal days were a huge success. This included an uptick in sales from the cities around the country that get the Michael Patrick Leahy Show on the John Fredericks Radio Network. By the way, 6 more stations added to the John Fredericks Radio Network in West Virginia starting Monday. So that'll bring the total to 27 stations in Philadelphia and Pittsburgh and all across Virginia, Nashville, Memphis, dominating West Virginia and Atlanta. So thank you to all the John Fredericks Radio Network listeners in those cities. And for the Glock guys and gals who haven't had the opportunity to visit Glockstore.com, you really should. Here's why. Not only do they have every Glock in stock, they only stock the very best parts and accessories, including the hard-to-find Glock factory parts like the Glock Performance Trigger. And they know they're the best because they personally test each and every one. If Lenny McGill doesn't like it, it does not get on the website, period. And if Lenny really likes a product, he features that product on his fantastic YouTube channel. It has over 500,000 subscribers, nearly 1,000 videos, and a 99% thumbs up rating. If you aren't a fan yet, go to youtube.com/@ the @Glockstore, and you soon will be. That's youtube.com/@ Glockstore. And don't forget to go to Glockstore.com, sign up for their weekly sales letters. You'll even get a link to the latest Lenny McGill video every Wednesday afternoon. I'm very proud that Lenny McGill is a friend and sponsor of the Michael Patrick Leahy Show. Visit Glockstore.com today. You'll be glad you did, and so will I. So there you go. That's the Morning Rundown, brought to you by the Glock Store, located right here in Nashville, Tennessee, but accessible to everyone in the United States of America at Glockstore.com. That's Glockstore.com. Now, wanted to talk a little bit about the big story of 2024, one of the biggest stories, and that is the regime media cover-up of the mental incompetence of Joe Biden. Here is a mea culpa from CBS, clip 4, CBS yesterday.
One of the things we also do in the year-end correspondence roundtable is dig into what was undercovered or underreported. Jan?
Undercovered, underreported. That would be, to me, Joe Biden's obvious cognitive decline that became undeniable in the televised debate.
At the presidential debate with Donald Trump.
Unquestioned. And, you know, it's starting to emerge now that his advisors kind of managed his limitations. It's been reported in the Wall Street Journal for 4 years, and yet he insisted that he could still run for president. We should have much more forcefully questioned whether he was fit for office for another 4 years, which could have led to a primary for the Democrats. It could have changed the scope of the entire election. Yet, still, incredibly, we read in the Washington Post that his advisors are saying that he regrets that he dropped out of the race. You know, that he thinks he could have beaten Trump. And I think that is either delusional or they're gaslighting.
President
American
Biden
people.
has...
Okay, so let me just interrupt here for a moment. All of those yakety yackers at CBS, what they're saying is, oh, we missed this. Somebody missed that story. No, they covered it up. They were part of it. You want to see evidence of it? Here is, we've got this montage of cover-up and deception by Biden administration officials throughout the 4 years of the Biden administration about his, complete mental collapse, and the media's compliance in this. This is clip 12. Basically, this is the compendium of the Biden is okay liars. Here we go.
Does the president have the stamina, physically and mentally, do you think, to continue on even after 2024?
Don, you're asking me this question. Oh my gosh, he's the president of the United States. I can't even keep up with him.
The most difficult part about a meeting with President Biden is preparing for it, because he is sharp, intensely probing,
Alejandro Mayorkas,
oriented and focused.
I can testify because I've been working very closely with this president for the past 2 years. I've been knowing him for 30 years. And I'm telling you, this guy's tough. He's smart. He's on his game.
What a liar that guy
is. Vision. He has knowledge. He has a strategic thinker.
The president is focused. He's detail oriented. He's always thinking about the big picture.
They got the memo.
He's engaging. He is capable. He has an incredible record as president.
And I'm often with him on foreign
That's Janet
trips.
Yellen, Secretary of Treasury.
He's at the top of his game.
So he has a vision. He has knowledge.
This is Pelosi.
He has judgment. He has a strategic thinking.
Okay. So come on. Pelosi just kicked him out. Palace coup. They got rid of him. He didn't know. He did not know that he was no longer going to be running for president. They just slipped that in. Everybody knows it. And really, the 2020 election, totally stolen. We'll have more with Tom Zalstowski when we get back. His summary of 2024. I'm Michael Patrick Leahy, back after this.
Hey there, this is Lenny McGill, founder and CEO of The Glock Store. As a proud sponsor of this show, you may have heard Michael Patrick Leahy mention us a few times over the past 4 years. But today, it's me on the radio telling you how pleased we are to be associated with Michael Patrick Leahy and his dedication to the highest levels of professional journalism. Michael Patrick Leahy has been threatened with jail time in bringing the true facts about that Nashville Covenant shooting to his listening audience. Michael Patrick Leahy, you keep doing what you're doing, and we here at the Glock Store will keep sponsoring your show for the good of Nashville and the entire country. And I'm personally inviting all of your listeners to come visit and shoot at the Glock Store. It's where Michael Patrick Leahy learned to shoot a gun for the first time and where he bought his own personal Glock 19. I'm Lenny McGill, founder and CEO of the Glock Store here in Nashville, just minutes from the airports, worth the drive from anywhere, and a proud sponsor of Michael Patrick Leahy and the Tennessee Star Report.
Welcome back to the Michael Patrick Leahy Show. Now, here's Michael Patrick Leahy.
Welcome back to the Michael Patrick Leahy Show. We're going to actually make a change here right now. We're going to probably do a phone call with our good friend Tom Zawistowski. And I'm going to we're going to get Tom to share with us his view on exactly what the big stories are in 2024. What are the big ones? And Tom, I think, is a guy who really knows a lot about that. He's the head of the We the People convention. We were trying to get the Zoom call with him on that, but we had a few technical difficulties on that. And so we're in the process of calling him right now. Tom Zawistowski, I've known Tom. How long have we known Tom? We've known Tom for about 15 years or so. And he was one of the early founders of the Tea Party movement in Ohio. A really great guy, and gives us all sorts of really clear insights as to what's going on in Ohio. Also, kind of the first guy who gives us the scoop on what's going on with the Senate race there right now. It must be a little bit, Tom. We've got the New Year's technical problems going on, but we have you on the phone right now. Tom, good morning. How are you?
Good morning and Happy New Year's to you and to your viewers and listeners, Michael. What a great thing coming up in 2025. It's going to be pretty doggone exciting.
Yeah. What were the big stories for you in 2024?
Well, obviously, the election, was the biggest story in the 21st century. So you can't put that in any other category. But I think, there are other subplots to that really played a role. Again, you go back to a year ago at this time, all the lawfare against Trump. DeSantis is running against Trump. There's so much uncertainty. And, the persecution of conservatives is in fully being implemented by the DOJ and the FBI. And there were pretty dark times. But throughout those dark times, you and your listeners and I and our members at WeThePeopleConvention.org stayed the course, Michael, and believed that the truth would win out. And by fighting literally by the hour to get the truth out about whatever it was, about Trump or about the election or about, voting processes or, candidates, by staying, really committed to the truth, I think that's why we won overall.
Yeah, exactly. Now, I know this is a good day for justice in America. The U.S. Attorney in the District of Columbia, Matt Graves, who has persecuted, 1,500, 1,600 Americans just for walking into the Capitol and using their First Amendment rights. He's resigned. Do you think he'll end up being prosecuted or pardoned? Prosecuted by the new incoming Department of Justice or pardoned by Biden? What do you think? Which one?
If he's not pardoned by Biden, he's going to be prosecuted. To quote Mark Davis, who's on the Vantage Show all the time, he better lawyer up because these guys, they committed serious crimes. And I'm very hopeful that Kash Patel and Pam Bondi are going to appoint special prosecutors. And there's been some rumor that maybe Matt Gaetz could be one of those. That would be interesting. Okay,
that would be fun.
But literally go after these people because this is illegal. And I'm very excited about the opportunity to go after these people with special counsels, just like they did, because theirs were all lies. They were all made up. That was just lawfare. There's nothing about what we're going to do that's not, based in the law. Just talk to Julie Kelly. She'll tell you about this Graves character. All right, she's got it all documented, and so let's hope, because Michael, you cannot. These people say, "Oh, let's move on now. 2020 is over. Don't go after Biden and his family. Let's just go on." No, you can't do that. You just can't do that. You have to implement equal justice under the law, and that's what we've been fighting for all along.
This Friday, the new Congress will convene, and they'll swear in all the members of the House and the Senate. The House now, because of the resignation of Matt Graves, is going to be 219 GOP, 215 Democrat. Not a big advantage for the GOP there. The reelection of Mike Johnson as Speaker of the House is somewhat in doubt. Donald Trump yesterday, about this time of day, while we were talking with Congressman Tim Burchett live, said that he was going to wholeheartedly endorse Speaker Mike Johnson. What is your take on that? Do you agree with President Trump, or do you think there will be another fight over the speakership?
I agree with President Trump. I wrote on X, because again, we need to understand some reality. Okay, there's just certain things that are real, and one of the things that's real is I don't think we have any other choice than to support Johnson as Speaker. Who else do we have? And I said our most conservative members are going to have to focus on what can be done and get it done. We need unity, Michael, now more than ever. The perfect is the enemy of the good. MAGA must focus on acting in unison, just like any team, right? Everybody doesn't agree on the play call, but once the play is called, we got to execute. So in a weird way, Michael, I actually think we're going to get more Republicans and even rhinos to get in line because there's no margin for error than we would if there was a bigger margin for error, because it would just be too much of a focus on them if they jerk around. So I think this is going to work out okay. I think we're going to pass the legislation that needs to be passed, and then it's going to go to the Senate and get passed as well.
Yeah, the other argument for voting for Mike Johnson is simply the clock. On January 3rd, they'll be voting for Speaker. But on January 6th, there's a joint session of Congress where they certify the Electoral College votes that were cast on December 15th all across the state capitals of the country. Donald Trump got 312 of those Electoral College votes, and 226 went to Kamala Harris. Once he gets 270, he is confirmed as the president-elect. I don't think it serves the MAGA agenda whatsoever to be involved in a fight over the speakership that would delay that certification vote. Your thoughts on that, Tom Zalestowski?
Yeah, well, absolutely. I mean, again, who's going to do any better? Nobody. So let's just step up and do the right thing and stay focused on the agenda. And I think that's exactly what's going to happen, because then what do we want? We want, the Senate to start confirming, some of these appointees, like right away.
Let's get moving.
Right now.
Speaking of the Senate.
It's not 4 years. It's 100 days at most, and probably 6 weeks to start showing some real changes.
Speaking of the Senate, do we have any more indication as to what Governor Mike DeWine's going to do with regards to replacing J.D. Vance in the United States Senate?
Yeah, it's very quiet, really quiet. And so I don't know what that means. I don't know how to read that. Is it because DeWine's getting pressure? Does President Trump have leverage here? I don't know. Is there something DeWine wants that President Trump would have to give up to get the person he wants? Lots of questions. So, Michael, we're going to be watching that really closely, and that will start to develop, I think, starting next.
So
next
J.D.
Monday.
Vance I think he's not going to resign until January 19th or the morning. January. That's a plan, right? So he will be voting in the.
He'll get the vote on some of the people that Trump's trying to appoint to these agencies, at least for 10, 14 days, right? So
and
that's good.
During this period of time, Kamala Harris will be presiding over the Senate if she shows up, right?
Yeah, she's just. Has anyone found her? She's like you can't track her. I mean, you can track Santa from the North Pole, but where the hell is Kamala Harris and Joe Biden? Called his travel agent because all he wants to do now is be anywhere but in Washington. It's pretty bizarre what's happened. And again, that needs to be investigated. I don't know. How do you feel, Michael, about these people who usurped the presidential powers, knowing that Biden was incapable of doing his job? There's legal ramifications for that. I think these people should be charged for doing what they did with Joe Biden. How do you feel about that?
I think that's what's going to happen, Tom. Tom Zalestowski, We the People Convention in Ohio. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, Happy New Year to everyone, all right? Let's celebrate a patriotic Happy New Year.
You bet. You bet. Up next,
Bye-bye.
Andy Ogles, Congressman from Tennessee. Back after this.
Welcome back to the Michael Patrick Leahy Show. Now, here's Michael Patrick Leahy.
We welcome to our newsmaker line right now our very good friend, Congressman from Tennessee's 5th Congressional District, Andy Ogles. Welcome, Andy.
Thanks for having me. We're going into the new year. It's going to be exciting times.
It is. You are back in D.C. after having spent the holidays in Tennessee. Is it like culture shock when you leave the great state, the state income tax free of Tennessee, state income tax free state, and then you go into the belly of the beast up there? Is that do you have to go through like a whole cleansing process each time you go in and out?
Exactly. It is different. I mean, we're blessed to live in Middle Tennessee. It's a special place. Just the people. I don't mean to disparage DC, but the people are nicer in Nashville. But you come up here. I chose this job to fight for our family, our state, our country, and so I do it willingly. The family came up here with me, so we're spending a little time doing the touristy stuff for a day or two before we get sworn into office and obviously vote for Speaker.
What's your favorite touristy thing to do up there with your family?
For me, it's just especially our little one, just the wonder and amazement, as they're studying these things, to be able to see that, your dad gets to work in the Capitol, to see the Washington Monument. My favorite's probably the Lincoln Memorial.
Mm-hmm.
But that being said, love the Smithsonian's. I mean, you can just spend days and days and get lost and still not see it all.
And the good thing about all those Smithsonian's, the Museum of Natural History, the Science and Technology, the Native American Museum up there, they're all free, which is great, especially if you have a family. Well, the big question, of course, Andy, is today is the final day of 2024. Thank goodness. Tomorrow begins 2025. On Friday, you're going to have a vote up there, I think, in the House to elect a speaker. And I think you've got 219 Republicans, 215 Democrats. Matt Gaetz' seat is empty.
That's right.
Thomas Massie has come out in opposition, the Republican from Kentucky, to Mike Johnson. Donald Trump yesterday gave a wholehearted endorsement to Speaker Johnson. Have you decided, Andy Ogles, if you're going to vote for Speaker Johnson on Friday?
Yeah, great question. So to give your listeners context, because the margin is so tight, the speaker can only afford to lose one vote. And Thomas Massey's a hard no. Don't think he's going to move off of that. So he can't afford to lose anyone else. Right now, there's two other possible folks that are moving into the hard no camp. But the speaker is calling, laying out his plan. I spoke to the speaker twice yesterday. I think for me, the biggest issue is when you look at the spending bills over this last year since that Mike Johnson has been speaker, they've passed with more Democrat votes than Republican votes. Well, why? Because they're full of spending nonsense. We're sending money to Ukraine, yet we're not cutting anything out of the budget. And we're barreling towards 36. Before you know it, we're going to have $37 trillion in debt. We've got to start cutting the budget somewhere. And so now in Mike's defense, we're about to have unified government. We're going to have the House, the Senate, and the White House. And so now you can really do some substantive things. And so that's the question, is lay out a plan for us. And give us your word that if we do a supplemental to anything, I don't care what it's for, whether it's disaster or whatever it is, we've got to find the money somewhere else in the budget and cut, because we know there's waste. We know there's fraud. We know there's plenty of money to be cut. So let's start moving those pennies around, or hundreds of millions of dollars around, instead of borrowing more money from China, going further in debt. And quite frankly, we're to the tipping point where this is no longer just a fiscal issue. This is a national security issue. We've got to get our house in order.
It sounds like you are kind of jockeying and working to get Speaker Johnson to commit to levels of fiscal responsibility that you as a fiscal conservative would like. It doesn't sound to me like you're moving towards a hard no, but it doesn't sound to me like you're quite at yes yet. Do I have that right?
That's correct. And, full disclosure, Mike is a friend of mine. We text regularly, we talk regularly. But that being said, he has a job to do, and I expect him to do that job well. Going into the 119th Congress, between the House and the Senate, I'm ranked the most conservative member of both chambers. That is because I'm a fiscal hawk. We've got to get our fiscal house in order. And so with that, I need to see a plan. I need to see and Mike is a good man. He's a good, solid Christian man. I just need him to give me his word that he's going to execute this plan that he's laying out, and that's what we're working on.
Now, Thomas Massie, hard no. Tell us about Massie. What kind of guy is Massie?
Massie is also a friend. He's a really good guy, very down to earth. He's brilliant. He's got, I don't know, several hundred patents. And Massie, quite frankly, had a rough year. He lost his wife.
I saw that
this past year.
Yeah.
But just a good, down-to-earth, grounded guy. And he's kind of in that same camp of, we're spending these billions of dollars in Ukraine. We've spent more in Ukraine this last year than we spend on our own Marine Corps. So I think if you ask any average person on the street, who should get more funding from the United States government, the military of Ukraine or our United States Marine Corps? I'm guessing most people would say our own military. But the reality is we're spending more money in Ukraine than we are on our own defenses, and that's a problem. And so when you look at these fiscal issues, when you look how the money's being spent, that's a problem for Massie. I can't speak for Thomas Massie, but I think that's where those are his biggest issues as we go forward.
So if I were to talk with Massie or any other members who might be a hard no, my argument would be, yeah, you're making good points, but we need to focus on first things first. And the most important thing that we need to do is to certify the election of Donald Trump to president when the joint session of Congress convenes. I think it's on Monday, right? January 6th. And we can't afford, we need that first 100 days to hit the ground running when Donald Trump is inaugurated on January 20th. If he's not confirmed, if he's not certified on January 6th, that could throw a wrench into everything, and who knows how things could spin out of control. That would be my argument. What's your response to that, Andy?
I think that's a valid point. And historically, it's actually occurred on the 7th or 8th before. And what happens is they actually extend the legislative day. So even though, let's say we technically certify the election on the 7th, it's still the 6th, the legislative day. So there's some parliamentarian tricks that they can do to extend the legislative day. But I agree with you. If we're going to have some sort of speaker fight, which I think Mike Johnson ultimately will get there, but he's got some work to do over the next couple of days. He's actually out of town with his family, and he's working the phone. So, I mean, he's dedicated to the cause. But that being said, is that it'll happen quickly. It won't be a protracted issue. There's no one else that are actively throwing their names in the hat. I mean, the obvious names would be someone like Tom Emmer, like Steve Scalise, like Jim Jordan, or like Byron Donalds, in no specific order. But those would be probably your four top contenders if for some reason Mike Johnson were to step back and say, okay, I'm not going to do this. I don't have the votes. But Mike's working hard. I expect I'll talk to him here in the next couple of hours just to touch base with him. But yeah, it's going to be a long couple of days, but we're going to get it done. And ultimately, we're going to certify this election because in less than 3 weeks, Donald Trump will be president of the United States again, and there is a bright future ahead of us. There's light at the end of the tunnel. It's not the train, it's sunshine, and it's Donald Trump.
What's going on with Congressman Chip Roy of Texas? He's been back and forth with Donald Trump, and Trump had said, we'll primary you if you don't, vote my way on. Is Chip Roy? Do you talk to Chip a lot? And what's going on in that relationship between Chip Roy and Donald Trump?
So I'm on the board of the House Freedom Caucus, was elected as a freshman. And so we had a board call last night, and Chip's on the board with me. And so we talked about that very issue. Obviously, there's some relationship issues that have to be worked on between the president and Chip Roy, but myself, Scott Perry, others are working on that because, Chip Roy is a loud voice, but he's a good, solid voice. You may not agree with Chip, but he always comes from a factual standpoint. And he's always, you're always going to learn something when Chip Roy's talking. And again, you may not agree with him, but you're still going to learn something. And so that's a relationship that needs to be mended. And look, there's some history there. Roy was close to Ron DeSantis. He supported Ron DeSantis instead of Donald Trump. And so again, that takes time. But if you look at historically, Trump has moved on from kind of grudges against people, had them in his administration. So there's a future there between Chip and Trump. It'll just take some time.
It sounds like you're having a fascinating time working with all of these, how shall we say this, egos up there. I mean, everybody who's elected to Congress has an ego and has an agenda. You don't have much margin of error now, do you? 219 to 215. Wait, is Massey going to vote for somebody else? Is he going to abstain? Has he said specifically what he's going to do?
Yeah, so the way it works, it's a simple majority based off of the number of people voting. And so that's an important distinction, because if Massey votes for Byron Donalds, he voted. If, however, he votes present, then that can lower the threshold of the number of votes required. So you could actually have a few people who, you know what, they're not quite all in on Mike Johnson, and they can vote present. And what that does is lowers the threshold of the number required to elect a speaker. Now, if too many people vote present, you could have a scenario where Hakeem Jeffries ends up temporarily being speaker. So those of us that we do the math tally in the back to make sure nobody screws that up. But ultimately, I do believe we're going to get across the finish line. I do believe Mike Johnson will. There's a path for him. Again, I'll say this and I'll say it again. He's got a lot of work between now and Friday before he's elected. But as long as he's laying out a clear vision, that speaks to those issues. You know, again, secure the border. What's the plan to deport? Like all of those types of things. You know, no talk or conversations about amnesty.
Mm-hmm.
All of that stuff has to be vetted out over the next 48, 72 hours before we elect a speaker, because once he's in there, he's going to be in there.
Mm-hmm.
And that, like you said before, that first 100 days is critical. It's critical for the country, and it's critical for the future of America and my children and grandchildren and so forth and so on. So we got to get this right.
Last question for you. When was the last time you spoke with President-elect Trump, and what did you talk about?
The last time was, I don't know exactly when, but it was during the holidays, and we talked specifically about kind of the fiscal issues going forward. Most recently spoke to J.D. Vance, and it was about the speaker's fight. In fact, I was with the speaker when we had that call. So the three of us were on a call together talking about the path forward and what that might look like.
Well, you're at the center of all of this action, Andy Ogles, and doing a terrific job representing the 5th District of Tennessee. I thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us, and we look forward to getting your reports as this speaker's race evolves. Andy Ogles, thanks for joining us.
Thanks so much. You have a great day.
All right. There you got it, right from Andy Ogles. How about that? Well, when we get back, I'm Michael Patrick Leahy.
My fellow Americans, I have to tell you about my good friends at D.T. McCall & Sons. They have furniture and appliances and a lot more. They've been family-owned in Middle Tennessee for over 100 years, and they're not going to rip you off. No hidden charges, no delivery charges, no charges for all of the crazy things. These are sick people at the lumber yards. These are very sick people. They charge you for cords and hoses and haul-off. They charge you for all of these things. They call them hidden charges. It's the type of surprise that you don't want to see. It's like an October surprise, but it's worse. D.T. McCall & Sons, they're not going to do that. They're great people. They're going to give you a great deal with locations in Lebanon, Carthage, Lafayette, Cookeville, and Franklin. D.T. McCall & Sons will give you the deal of your life. Check them out today or go to dtmccalls.com.
Impersonator not endorsed by Donald Trump.
Welcome back to the Michael Patrick Leahy Show. Now, here's Michael Patrick Leahy.
Welcome back. We welcome to our studios guest host of the Michael Patrick Leahy Show, our newest all-star panelist, a refugee from Minnesota, Stan, also a native of Massachusetts, Stan.
That's right. Taxachusetts, as my dad used to call it.
Taxachusetts. E.J. Host, welcome, E.J.
Hello and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. And it is fitting that the final day of 2024, you are here to share your wisdom with us.
Our wisdom. My opinions, anyway.
Yes, and you will be guest hosting this Friday here, and you'll be joined in the 10 o'clock hour by the great Roger Simon, and in the 11 o'clock hour by Carmichael. So thank you for 3 hours of broadcast excellence on
watch
Friday.
out, world. I got control of the mic.
Speaking of control of the mic, you told me, I kind of knew this was coming, but they're going to rearrange the White House press room.
Yeah.
Tell us what happened on that.
Yeah. Some listeners might recall it was, I don't even know, got to be more than a month ago, that Don Jr. had made some comments and saying he was going to stir some things up. He was on a podcast and he said, I think we need to revamp that press room. Probably not his idea to do it. It sounds more like it was Levitt. Levitt is going to be the incoming new
like
press secretary.
27, 28 years old.
Smart woman.
She ran for Congress in New Hampshire in 2022, lost by 3 or 4 points, which is pretty good.
For New Hampshire, for sure.
For New Hampshire. Yeah. And of course, 25 is the youngest you could be to serve in the House of Representatives. She's very good.
Very good. Very articulate and unapologetic. Doesn't hold back. I really appreciate that about her. And she is all America all the time. And so what she said, though, she was on, I believe it was Fox News. Sorry, I don't have that clip. But basically she was saying that the press room is going to more accurately reflect the sources that people get their news from these days. And what I take from her statements was basically, the old kind of 1980s, you fight for your front row seat.
Regime media, CBS, ABC,
right.
NBC, CNN.
They throw in a couple of, foreign people here and there to get their news.
Pompous.
There's a system to it, I guess, is my point. There's a system to it.
The room has been controlled by the White House Correspondents Association. I think there's room for like 50 seats or something like that.
And they're crammed in there.
And you get a seat because of the White House Correspondents Association, which is a far left operation of regime media types.
Yep.
But if they're going to rearrange the seats and who gets a seat to reflect how people get their news today, well, I think anybody who is prominent on X, formerly Twitter, is going to be up there. And in fact, the John Fredericks radio network, John Fredericks himself, is vying to get a seat.
Is he going to apply for a seat? I love that.
Well, Fredericks is actually moving his weekday operations. Weekends, he's going to be in Pittsburgh, but weekdays, he's got a condo that is like 2 blocks from the White House.
Nice.
And he's actually occupying it over this weekend.
That's incredible.
And so,
But that reflects where people are getting their news now. I mean, we listen to the radio, we listen to podcasts, we go to X. Elon Musk, as a matter of fact, said that the numbers just continue to grow for where people are getting their news. X dominates in multiple countries. So I think it makes sense that
It's real. It moves fast.
Very fast.
Now, I think there will be an implication of this change for this program. Because what's going to happen is they do these conferences, these press conferences. They'll typically do them in the morning, and so that would mean 9 a.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Eastern. We start this program 10 a.m. Eastern. John Fredericks is probably going to be there.
Okay.
And so we will cut away to John at the White House.
That's incredible.
During these briefings. Now, also, what we may find is a little bit of flexibility. If John is there 9 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Central, sitting in the White House briefing room, yours truly will be hosting the last hour of the John Fredericks Show.
Nice.
And then we'll have more E.J. Host throughout the day. And so if news breaks, for instance, we'll break in. And John Fredericks will be, if all goes well, he'll be right there in the briefing room.
That's incredible. He has my vote for sure. I mean, he's a great radio guy, but he's just a news person. He gets it. He understands it, and compelling personality. So personally, I think all the changes make sense in there. I would also like to see a change at the podium itself.
What would you change?
So, I mean, we've long known that the setup doesn't make any sense. They kind of know the questions that are coming, even if they aren't fully written out for them. They know what to expect based on what people are reporting
you want a curvy
on
couch?
And that kind of thing.
You want a curvy couch?
No curvy couch. I don't think I need, a comfortable podcast atmosphere, but sure would like to see, an expert come in every once in a while versus the spokesperson just reading
I
off
see what
of
you're
a
saying.
notebook.
Yeah, subject matter expert in the government.
Yep.
Well, sounds great. We'll take a break. We'll come back after the news with E.J. Host. I'm Michael Patrick Leahy.